So the cap of this tea is very loose, so I would suggest to take it off.
Is it? No, mine works actually.
You sure?
Yeah, it works.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. What's good, everyone? Ghazali Ohorella here, Go Maluku podcast, COP28, day 1. We're clocking in November 30th. What time is it right now? Like 7 p.m.?
It's almost 8.
8 p.m.
Quarter to
All
8.
Right. What we always do, daily debrief. So, Tomo, let's go through the events of the day.
Wait. Pause.
This is the Go Maluku podcast.
Pause. Let's start with let's start with Dubai, right? Let's start with the arrival and how you're getting a feel of the place, because it's always, when you come to a new COP venue, you try to get the feel of, the place, the pace, the tempo.
Right. First impressions,
right?
So, yours? You arrived here.
You arrived here much earlier than I have, so.
I did, yeah.
You have been around maybe for the
Walking
first
around a little
few
bit.
days. So tell me, is Dubai what you exactly expected? Or what did you expect, and how close is it to the reality that you have been experiencing?
My expectation was like hyper modern, sophisticated city.
Yeah.
Everything is like digital and Maseratis, Bugattis, and all that stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And also, if I would compare it to something, it would be like Vegas on steroids.
Okay.
That's how I would compare it. It's huge. It's colossal.
Yeah.
Everything is bigger, much bigger. Malls are bigger.
Yeah.
Skyscrapers. Like I saw I think what is it, the Zayed Road?
The one that goes straight through the city.
Yeah, right. The strip kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to build the Chrysler Tower.
Yeah.
It looks like the Chrysler Tower. Like I saw the Big Ben, or attempt to make a Big Ben. Obviously, also Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
That thing is huge.
Yeah.
That thing is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Did not get the chance to go up, but that's definitely on my bucket list to go in, go up. Burj Al Arab. I want to see the Global Village.
Yep.
That seems pretty good.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. First impressions. Yeah. So that, and also, this is a city made for cars.
Yeah.
Not much like sidewalks, and stuff.
Yeah.
Bicycles, don't even try.
Yeah.
And it's like Lexus and above. The types of cars that you see on the road is Lexus and above. So that's pretty much what I see. Yeah. How about you?
No, it's a bit of a paradoxical place, My first kind of original impression was, let's admit it, Dubai is a city, or generally in the Middle East, cities are built with oil money, right? So one hand, they have to keep producing things that makes money for them in order to prosper. So there's a paradox of trying to create a city that's supposed to be, supposed to be the future, right? Of what we imagine the future to be. But it has to be built on the back of on the money that comes from the very thing that is currently threatening the planet.
Right.
So when I first arrived here, there are so many modern buildings and modern technology in place. But on the other hand, when you I was just crossing the overbridge over this big highway, and I was counting lanes. Like how many lanes are there from one side to another? Right. And it was 29 of them. 29. Okay. 29 lanes from one side to the other, and all of them filled with
cars.
Yeah, combustion engine cars.
Right.
Hardly any electric cars here at all. So, like I said, it's very paradoxical. It's really weird.
What, in the context of COP or just in general?
No, just generally.
Okay.
It's like it's a futuristic city, but at the same time, it's run by a very archaic things like cars, and and they still extract these things, and here we are, at COP,
Right.
which is supposed to promote, which is working towards phasing out fossil fuel, which we'll probably talk about in a minute, and promoting more sustainable forms of energy production. So we do feel conflicted. I mean, even at the beginning, the idea of hosting COP in Dubai was already very controversial, and presided by a former oil executive as well. So I mean, we are here to do advocacy, but at the same time, we also understand this reality that we are in,
Right.
From the city that we are in to the presidency that we are being led.
But isn't that with every COP?
Yeah.
With Glasgow, there was this major complaints about the UK, Sharm, major complaints about Egypt. There was even talk about boycotting and everything else.
Yeah.
Same with UAE.
Yeah.
Where else did we go? We went to Poland, Katowice.
Yeah. The coal. It was a coal country.
Coal country.
Yeah.
So people went. So it's.
But
It's an observation. It's
Yeah.
it's an observation that everyone
Yeah.
makes, and that people will continue to make. I'm sure.
But here's a question for you: this boycott thing that was happening behind the scene.
Was it?
Yeah, there is a boycott movement against COP28 in Dubai.
All right. Yeah. Oh, that's. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess a lot of people still show up anyway.
Yeah.
But why did you decide to show up? I mean.
Well, I think when it comes to the boycott,
Yeah.
it's what you definitely need is critical mass.
Yeah.
I can scream boycott something or McDonald's or Burger King, whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's just me, it's
Right.
Everyone's
right. Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with boycotting UAE. Well, it's if it's just you
Yeah.
or a few of you, then will it have any effect? And then people will say I'm taking a stance. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
All right, great. But then again, what goes through my mind is that it's all right. I understand it from a CSO perspective, but if you're in many cases you represent a peoples, then it's different.
Yeah.
And then whether you like it or not, there are decisions that are being made over here that will impact your peoples.
Yeah.
So it's you might have ideological beliefs that are contrary to what's being discussed over here, carbon markets, and whatnot.
Yeah.
But still, you see that it is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so you can stand on the sideline and a bitch and moan about it, and be it's wrong, or I don't accept this.
Yeah.
But at least what you can do if you have the opportunity is to you go in and you make an attempt to influence the decision making process.
Yeah.
And so that's the way how I see it. It's right. It's always good to be skeptical.
Yeah.
And to not challenge authority, but the decision making, especially when it comes to these spaces. So if you have the opportunity, you go there and you do what you can.
Yep.
To make sure that it doesn't fall below a minimum standard. It doesn't hurt people more than it already does. Stuff like that, and once in a blue moon, you get to do something that actually advances rights of Indian people.
Yeah.
That actually contributes to fighting climate change and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit how I look at it.
Yeah, and I guess in the recent years we've also seen a lot of contentious issues that are being raised at the COP from carbon markets, for
Right.
example. Removal and loss and damage, and we've been dealing with this for a long time. In your view, let's say in the last 4 years, right? You've been in COP. Have Indigenous people gone beyond protecting the minimum standard? Because the minimum standard is a minimum standard that Indigenous people will defend,
Right.
with their teeth, basically.
Yeah.
But is have indigenous people managed to go beyond that, right? Ask for more. Because you have the right to ask for more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that like you maintain the minimum standards,
Yeah.
and you always like it's part of negotiating. Like you have a bottom line, and you aim for whatever you can get.
Yeah.
The problem is that we're not states. States can easily do that. Like they can have this astronomical high like goal, whatever.
Yeah.
When it comes to IPs, it's we don't not have the same level of power or influence that states have. For example, like if you go to a state like either whether it is Benin, Bhutan, or Belgium, like either one of those states have like, we don't want this, and everyone else will have to like, all right, so what is it that you don't like? Because they're like, there's consensus that they work with consensus. You know? So when it comes to indigenous peoples, like when we go into these negotiations, like, well, it's not equal playing field. So that is something you have to take into account. So when it comes to these spaces, what I think is that like it's you do not abandon your ambition. That's what you should not be doing. You do not abandon, for example, maintaining 1.5. That's what a lot of indigenous people want. Maintain at 1.5. So how do you go about it? So like the way that I see it is that you keep a longer term vision. You make sure that it's a word that's not that we don't like, incrementally. Like you go at it in a different way, or you package it in a different way, or you make sure that, for example, just transition. Just transition is a good example. Like indigenous peoples want to have a just transition from fossil fuels to like renewable energy, right? So it's not just about like workforce from fossil fuels to renewable energies, but actually the use of the resource. So, all right. So just transition is a big topic, and there's no negotiating stream. So how do you go about it? So you use it as a base document, as your North Star, and you include elements of it in different negotiating streams. So it's not as clear cut as in like slamming your fist at the table like, well, now we want just transition. No, you go into these different negotiating streams and you tweak language in a way that it's that at the end of the day, at the end of the COP, like that it's start to reflect just transition. And then when it comes to that, I'm using just transition as a topic, but same thing with carbon markets, is that you have to go at it like in a multi-year process. It's phases that you have to go through. And it's not like we're going to all in over here at this COP, and it's everyone says like this is the pivotal COP. This is the COP that will change everything. It won't. It never did. So you gotta go at it in phases to ensure that it doesn't fall below the minimum standard, but also that you ensure that ambition stays in there, 1.5 stays in there, just transition stays in there. But in most cases, like I said, it's a negotiation. We're not at the same level as states. So it is 9 out of the 10 times it is about protecting the minimum standard. And it's what we need to do as well. We've gotten very good at it as well.
No, I also see that. Through the way the position papers are written is very much grounded in a declaration of the rights of indigenous peoples, which were endorsed by. It was adopted by General Assembly. And we see that throughout all the documents that I have seen in the advocacy. effort of indigenous peoples that to protect that minimum standard. So I guess a lot of states either don't understand or have different motives that prevents them from reaffirming the very text that they have adopted
Yeah.
in
Well,
New York.
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
it's not either or. It's all, some states they use it as one of the principles.
Right.
Protect at all
Yeah.
costs
Yeah.
the rights of Indigenous peoples
Yeah.
or human rights.
Yeah.
And some states see it as so. For some states, it's the main course.
Yeah.
And for other states, it's like a side dish.
Yeah.
And for the vast majority of states, it's the condiment.
Yeah.
It's yes, they were part of that when the declaration was adopted in 2007. 144 of them were here.
Yeah.
But you do see that there's that was New York.
Yeah.
And I was in 2007.
Yeah.
And it is also the role of Indigenous peoples to keep reminding them of that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, great what you're doing over here. But you're respectfully Secretary of Energy or Secretary of State or whatever. You did make a commitment in 2007 vis-a-vis the rights of Indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
So we're always reminding them. So it's when it comes to these conversations, like 90% of the conversation is like capacity building.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, remind you of the UN Declaration, remind you of the Paris Preamble, 11th paragraph of the Paris Preamble.
Yeah.
Remind them of stuff, and then it's also like, all right, great, you reminded me of those things. So how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
So like it's, and that is something that we could do more as a caucus. In some contexts, is like, we're very good at why. We're super good in explaining why these people need to be protected and need to be referenced. We're super good at that.
Yeah.
But the next step is like, all right, how do you want to see it reflected?
Yeah.
Where does the comma go?
Yeah.
Where does how do you operationalize it? And that is something that we could invest a little bit more time in.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of technical knowledge about the text, the concept, the ambition, the goal, the objective, and that is.
Yeah.
We're doing it more and more and more now, but ideally you wanted to be able to do that in Paris. But that is something that that I see as well.
Yeah, and we can talk briefly about the caucus later, but let's talk about priorities. So what are this year's? I mean, I guess you're not the co-chair of the caucus, but you represent a people who has given you a task to be here to fulfill what they need to what they believe to be accomplished here. So my question to you then is what is your priority for this COP, and what have you seen it happen with regard to your priorities here today?
Well, like the priority in general, not just necessarily COP, but like in the entire UNFCCC system or UN system, sorry, is to protect the rights of Indigenous peoples, advance, promote and protect the rights of Indigenous peoples, as well as and put the Maluku way forward, as in like, well, how we see things, how we live, and all that stuff. So make sure that you get a mandate. Most of these peoples that participate in these spaces have a mandate, or should have a mandate. And when you represent peoples, you go differently into conversations. So the mandate is clear. So that is not just irrelevant at the UNFCCC, but in general. Now, when it comes to the context of Maluku, for example, we're islands, but we also have rainforests.
Yeah.
And we are very, we have several problems, but the climate related is, for example, like making sure that carbon markets happens in a way that is not going to like make our situations even worse than it is right now.
Yeah.
Human rights violations, like right now, is like it's super bad.
Yeah.
Let alone when this whole Article 6 carbon market mechanism is going to launch, it'll be even worse. So that's one. And then the other one is we have a chronic problem that has started like many years ago, but what we call is transmigration. So like we have our indigenous lands, ancestral lands, and like local communities from other islands are brought onto our islands, settled in, get money, get protection, get land, and everything else. So we're becoming a minority within our own territories.
Yeah.
So those are like the two main things that really are on our scope.
Yeah.
In addition to like oceans, seas, and everything else.
Yeah.
But like I said, a steak side dish condiment, that's the steak.
Yeah.
The main course. So when you engage at some point, like for me, that was starting in Katowice in COP24. So you what you do is, like I said, phases. You try to like advance, to make sure that you're continuously at the table. You're at the table. You're influencing decision making. And now we've here from COP24. We're now here at COP28.
Yeah.
And like just here to make sure that the progress that you've made so far, what you talked about, like minimum standards and everything else, that actually is also the baseline. Yeah. That you don't fall below that baseline, and that you continue building on that. And a clear example of that is participation. So ensuring that Indigenous peoples, when it comes to processes that affects them, they're at the table. Yeah. Like when it comes to board seats, experts, whatever. Like it's always like. And one Indigenous peoples, one seat for Indigenous peoples, for example, stuff like that. So that is something that like you try to continue building on and progressing on the whole time. And over here at COP, it's no different. Like carbon markets is still on the table. Yeah. They want to like not punt it, but they want to kickstart it so that it can launch next year. So just here to make sure that it happens the right way. That they're not cutting corners, that they're not launching a light version of it, and then whatever that still needs to be done can be done afterwards. But like let's launch the light version first, so that this whole market mechanism can start rolling. So those are things that are, and in addition, like I said, local communities, Indigenous peoples is a huge issue for us. So we're also like very keeping an eye on that, how that is progressing.
But then is it fair to say that your focus is very much on the procedural aspect of how things are decided, and how Indigenous people participate in those decision-making processes?
Right.
Would you say that that's probably equally, if not more important than, say, 1.5 degrees target, or these more specific climate-related target, which a lot of Indigenous people here also come to advocate for, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The way that I see it is that it starts with participation. Yeah. Like we can have the best ideas, the most ambitious goals in the entire world. Yeah. But if you're still with your nose pressed against the window, then what can you do? Right. So my style, in a way, or maybe it's an ideology, I don't know what it is, but it's like, well, first be at the table. Yeah. Make sure that so it's like minimum standards, being at the table, and then we can talk about like the substantive part of everything else, because the problem is 9 out of the 10 times, like when we go to these negotiations, global stock take, agriculture, adaptation, all these negotiating streams. The issue is that they're all, we have to talk through states. You know, and so that might be a while. So let's put the building blocks in there, so that there's indigenous people's participation becomes a fact. Right now it's a courtesy. But it needs to become a fact. So minimum standard. All right, that's pretty much okay. Paris Preamble number 11. Now it comes to like making indigenous people's participation a fact. So that is something that I'm focusing on. So like procedurally is a little bit also my thing, because I like to play with the rules of procedures, push the boundaries, see how we can be creative in interpreting them, so that we can get these things. And then, you know, it's for me, it's also like, all right, let's do these things. But I'm unemotional about like, I want to do this so that I can be that person in that seat or in that board seat or whatever. I'm like, just you know, like open these doors, and then so that people like you and everyone else can walk through it. So that's a little bit how I approach these things, and why I'm so on these procedural stuff.
Then I guess the following question is, you know, do you think indigenous peoples here share that view that we should be working more on this, what you're doing, instead of you know, what I see some indigenous people and a lot of activists in this particular forum do, which is you know, working from the outside type of activity, you know, making noises, you know, other kind of, let's say, advocacy, activist advocacy.
Oh well, I think you asked the question, but you also like answer it at the same time as well. Like it's everyone has their own way of advocacy and activism. Tried in Paris. I tried joining protests and actions. Not my thing. Absolutely not. Like I'd rather be doing this type of work. So in a way,
so not your thing, in a sense that you don't see the effect it has on the decisions, or it's just not your thing? As
it's not my thing. It's not my thing.
Okay.
It's absolutely not my thing. So for other, that's what I'm trying to say is that for other indigenous peoples, it might be like, that's what I'm good at. You know, like, so a little bit self-awareness is part of it. So like if you are good, like this is how we call it a while ago, right? Inside action and outside action. You know, like inside action is advocacy, outside action is like, you run the streets and protest and everything else. So if your niche kind of thing is like, well, outside action, be my guest. If your niche is inside action, like great, like and then also there's like many layers in definitely in inside action as well. Is that all right? So some are more interested in taking notes of meetings. Fine. Some are more interested in going to agriculture and participate in conversations. Fine. Some are also more interested in side events. Or and like these small meetings, like side meetings. Fine. You know, like it's. I think the challenges is how I think about it is that we're, as indigenous people, we still have the CSO mindset. So which is all right, you know, like it's a lot about these side events and all these things, but it's actually more about these going to the negotiations and claim your seat at that table. So the way that I look at it is like, well, then that's my thing, and everyone else has their own priorities. Like if you like, that's also the beauty about things is that about mandates is like, well, you can have a very different mandate than I have, you know. So, but I assume that like the baseline is that it's all about protecting promoting and protecting the rights of indigenous peoples, like the UN Declaration, et cetera, et cetera. So like we use that as a baseline. That's a common denominator, and then everyone goes their own way. And then that's what a caucus is for. You know, right? If there is something that we do not agree upon, then it's the role of the caucus chairs and the caucus itself to like figure out, oh, what is the common ground then?
Yeah.
And let's use that. And before we go into states meetings, negotiations, and everything else. So yeah, that is sort of how I look at that.
And I guess it's starting to kind of. I'm also starting to see a little bit of, when you talk about participation, when you talk about mandates and representativeness of the caucus, I'm also starting to think a little bit. I'm also starting to look at the caucus in a very different way, right? So when I first came into the Indigenous caucus, I was looking at the caucus as a collection of Indigenous peoples coming together to form a consensus and then have one voice at the table.
Right.
But then again, nowadays when you talk about participation and when you look at the kind of Indigenous caucus as a place where Indigenous people gather, but there's also a difference in terms of who they represent and what they represent and what they're here to do.
Right.
And I just wonder, what your view is on how the caucus makes decision, for example, right? Because there's a position paper that needs to be out tomorrow, right, or the day after. We have to be dynamic, and we have to be very flexible, and also promote more inclusion to an extent.
Right.
How does it work? Like, because you have people showing up, people who don't show up, and people who knows the stuff and people who don't know the stuff. But yet there has to be one paper in the end.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the challenge? What is the challenge behind that process?
Well, the challenge behind the process is like, for example, like taking carbon markets as an example.
Yeah.
It's one of the most technical processes within a UNFCCC context. But it's like we always have said like the caucus is something that that unites us. So. And it's also like the negotiating arm of Indigenous peoples when it comes to the UNFCCC. I had a facilitated working group, hyper focused on traditional knowledge, like a zoom lens, the caucus, wide angle lens.
Yeah.
It does everything.
Yeah.
So because we do everything, like, so it's what we try to do, at least when it comes to the carbon market submission and position paper, is that all right? Who is interested in carbon markets? Who has the technical knowledge or the finesse to massage language, like decision language? All right, let's bring this into a team. And let's start working on a submission. So that's how I go about it. Because the thing is that if you do like a free for all, like all right, you go to caucus, like hey guys, blank sheet paper, submission for carbon markets, go play. It's you got a lot of input, but like is it on topic? Is it achievable? Is it like all these things like are will become a factor? So you try to scaffold it towards it. So you have a smaller team, like a smaller working group. You work on these stuff, and then like it requires an endorsement of the caucus. All what we do is like, well, then you forward it to the caucus, like, hey guys, seeking your endorsement for this. We worked it with a team that many of you know, and it's not like a secret society. Like it's like it's a team. It's open. You work on the stuff, and but you also want to ensure that there's like opportunities for review. So as much as possible. So we do like the first reading, comments. You balance it. Second reading, comments, and then you do the final. But there are times, and you've seen it as well, like between the June meeting of UNFCCC and COP, there's a lot of
Right.
submissions that need to be made.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's like last minute.
Yeah.
So then it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But again, like especially when it comes to carbon markets, like we push for human rights based approach.
Yeah.
We push for participation, and we push for grievance mechanism. So it is super important that we keep pushing, like keeping the pressure on. So when it comes to an request for input on this, all right, we gather, do like scaffold towards a submission, and then like, all right, guys, I'm sorry, we could not do the the regular consultation process that you would like to see. However, please. So you actually ask them to trust you.
Right.
You ask them to
I guess
trust
that's what I was trying to get to.
the team
Yeah.
that is working on it.
Yeah.
And so so you ask them to trust not you as a person.
Right.
You ask them to trust you in terms of the work that you do and the people that are participating in that work.
And the expertise that you have on the topic.
As a collective, that we as a collective have. Because like I don't, you, myself, and everyone else, we don't have like, we're not the one that have all the information.
Yeah.
But like you have a little bit, I have a little bit, everyone else has a little bit. But like if we work together on this, have trust in that this group is doing their best to represent the views of indigenous peoples, and to the extent that it doesn't favor one view of indigenous peoples, but it can that all indigenous peoples can, in one way or another, find themselves in the text. For example, in carbon markets, it's very simple. A lot of people are against it, but there are indigenous peoples that are in favor of it. So our job, whether some people like it or not, is to find a middle ground. It's like, because that's all about self-determination as well. Like, right, there's indigenous people that want to participate, there are indigenous people that do not want to participate. So it's up to us to ensure that the rights of both are protected. And the trust that they should be having that we are doing exactly that. And there might be a generous turnaround time. There might also be, in many cases, like a very narrow turnaround time. But nevertheless, regardless, the trust should be there.
I guess this is why I can see why your focus is very much into the procedural aspect, because because everybody, I think one could agree that the minimum standard is also agreed upon amongst all indigenous peoples. So even the back out, like a fallout position, will be to that standard, right? And not really inserting whether you're in favor of the market or not, but it's more about, for example, expanding participation, so that people who are for and against can still have the table, to have a seat at the table to talk about their concerns.
Because the way that I see it is that, and I do not like to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. We're the elite. What I mean by saying that is that there's 470 million indigenous people all around the world. Over here, they're like, what, 200?
Right.
So the way that I see it, the 200 of us, and there might be a majority of indigenous people from Latin America over here, or Asia, or Africa, or whatever. But let's say there are 200 indigenous peoples over here. Our job is, first and foremost, to represent our peoples. Clear. However, when it comes to decision making, is to ensure that everyone can feel protected by the work that we do. So it's not necessarily like the flavor of the day. Like I like to do this. I like tea. So everyone should be drinking tea. Whereas like you can drink water, coffee, whatever. But like I drink tea, so everyone should be drinking tea. No, your job is to make sure that everyone can drink. That's the job. Over here in this COP context. And I think that is the way. That's how I go about it. Is that trying to make sure that everyone can, whenever they see the decision text, is that at least the minimum standard is protected, and it's not perfect, but at least I don't feel that they are shutting me out. You know, and we're dealing with 476 million Indigenous peoples, and there's no way. Coming back to your earlier point, is that a caucus can be in one voice in everything.
Yeah.
You know, so what we try to do is we try to get consensus on many issues, but there are opportunities, or there are instances that these people are like, well, yes, this is the basis. However, we also have an additional issue, which is fine. The thing is that, and this is what I'm trying to say, is that we're not CSOs, civil society organizations. Caucus is not like with all due respect, a Youngo constituency or a farmers constituency. Is that, all right, we need to have one voice. We're self-determining peoples. So instead of like trying to get one voice in everything, let's approach it like G77 plus China, or Umbrella Group, or ILAC, all these other, or European Union. You know, like, so everyone comes to one point, like a hub, strategize. All right, these are common grounds. Let's work towards that, but also allow for Indigenous people to say, like, all right, great, minimum basis, we got that. There might be something that we find necessary to bring forward as well. There should be a possibility to be able to do that.
It's a possibility to go ahead and advocate for their individual concerns that are not
in
line
addition.
with the,
Well, in addition,
Okay.
you know, like it's not that the last thing you want is like everyone is for the rights of Indigenous peoples and you're against it.
Right.
Like that's not what. Not even G77 plus China or EU does that. You know, and the way that I see it is that, all right, everyone is agreement on eating steak. However, you like pepper sauce instead of mayonnaise.
Yeah.
You know, so like, all right, we agreement in steak. However, I like to have pepper sauce instead of mayonnaise, which is fine.
Yeah.
We agree on a steak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
We agree on the protein.
Yeah.
So that's how I see the way how a caucus is in many cases is behaving and should be behaving.
Yeah. Then let's talk more specifically about some of the things that you have been working on, you know, throughout the year leading up to this COP, and kind of use, you know, and how you coordinated, you know, the with the caucus and the team and the states that you have been in touch with. So let's take Article 6.
Okay.
Grievance mechanism. Grievance and appeal mechanism has been in consultation for the last, let's say, since the last COP. And it's something that is very much in focus for Indigenous people. So tell me a little bit about, like, let's say, processes of going through, creating positions, consulting teams, consulting caucus, and the problems and challenges that you feel about how the, you know, how whether it's how the caucus is organized, or how maybe you have felt that you weren't supported in any way, or, you know, just tell me the processes that you went through, and the challenges that you faced along the way.
Well, you go through a lot of processes, like both mentally as well as like work processes. So the one thing that people need to understand is that right, it's great going to COP.
Yeah.
You know, like people want like fundraise to go to COP, like, and there's a lot of like GoFundMe, Indiegogo, whatever, for Indigenous peoples and everyone else to go to COP.
Yeah.
But something that people need to understand is that COP is mainly what is happening at COP is dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Yeah.
Most of the work is done when we're not in Bonn or in Dubai, for example. Most of the work is done because it's there's just too much work. Some would say is that there are many people at COP, too many civil societies, too many influences. So let's work intercessionally, so we're not disturbed by Indigenous peoples and civil society. That's also what's being said. Like, so I'll leave it in the middle, like what is actually the truth.
Yeah.
However, the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of work that's being done in terms of, like, when it comes to a decision text. Most of the text is written between COP and SUBSTA and COP and SUBSTA. not at those meetings
Yeah.
itself. So, like I said, dotting the I's, crossing the
Yeah.
T's is why we're here in Dubai.
Yeah.
So, well, that's one thing that myth that needs to be busted.
Yeah.
The other one is, it's not necessarily a myth, but what people need to understand is that every stream, and primarily looking at carbon markets or Article 6,
Yeah.
it's like a full-time job. It literally is. And none of us are tracking Article 6 as our full-time job.
Right.
Like they have the supervisor body, they have meetings every month and a half. Like,
Sure.
and in addition, requests for input,
Yeah.
stakeholder consultations, workshops, and
Yeah.
if you put this all into a calendar, it's a full-time freaking job.
Yeah.
You know, so those are all challenges. However, it is affecting the rights of Indigenous peoples and Indigenous peoples on the lands.
Yeah.
So you need to do something
Yeah.
to at least keep up.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is like show up to COP and like, all right, this is our position on removals.
Yeah.
All right. Just so you know, like removals has kind of already been decided upon like a
Yeah.
couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Or this is our position on
Loss
I
and
don't know,
damage.
loss and damage, for example,
Yeah.
like what happened
Yeah.
like today.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot show up like a Johnny come lately. You know,
Right.
it's you got to be like putting pressure on, preview
Yeah.
of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
All right. So now how do things go? Like this. So what I do is I rely on other people, and I rely on this group of civil society organizations. You know, because like the views and the knowledge of many, like it can help you. So when you keep an eye on everything, and also like you keep an eye on what's helpful. LinkedIn, when you have members of the supervisory body, they're on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and they announce things or they say things.
Yeah.
So you so like you read something on LinkedIn, you see something in the signal group, and you connect the dots.
Yeah.
All right, and you send an email to everyone like, all right, guys, input on stakeholder input is upcoming
Yeah.
on issue so and so.
Yeah.
What do you want? What should we do?
Yeah.
What I've learned is also do not come at an issue with half a thing, meaning only stating the problem,
Yeah.
but also at least give a basis for thought of the solution.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, there's input requested for grievance mechanism.
Yeah.
So I could like send out the template and the decision text. All right, hey guys,
Yeah.
go play.
Yeah.
But at least like, all right, give some pointers.
Yeah.
Or hey guys, I give a draft.
Yeah.
I'll suggest this first reading, date so and so. Then I'll balance the text.
Yeah.
And then we'll go over it again and date so and so. And this happens in a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. And this is a communication with the team or with the
With the team, because it's particularly with carbon markets.
Yeah.
It's like it's so hyper technical.
Yeah.
That you rely on the people that have some technical knowledge about these things.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
so you do that, all these things,
Yeah.
and then what happens is that you once you're almost ready to do the second reading, or like done with the second reading, it's like all right, you send it to the caucus for endorsement. When it's and then do those 1 or 2 readings as well. So there's a timeline
Yeah.
of at least 2 weeks
Yeah.
to ensure that because not everyone like is up to date, or not everyone is. Some people are in the community,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
I said, this is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And so you try to make sure that's. So you want to get these deadlines as soon as possible,
Yeah.
so you can like reverse engineer to where you are right
Yeah.
now, and then create a timeline. Procedurally, it's that, and the only thing that you try to do is like, all right, you give a like a prompt,
Yeah.
like a draft.
Yeah.
All right, what do you guys think? So in the Zoom call is also is always very interesting and very important.
Yeah.
Because it's like a first thoughts kind of
Yeah.
meeting.
It's like a red tape. First, like a red tape meeting.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's a brainstorm. Oh
Yeah.
well, this and this and this
Yeah.
and this, and we'll play with it a little bit. We'll sleep on it.
Yeah.
And then you see like and that's why Google Docs is like is your friend on this.
Yeah.
track changes.
Yeah.
You know, like so that you could balance the text. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you know, this aligns with this, but doesn't align with that.
Yeah.
So you try to balance it.
Yeah.
So this legal aspect
Yeah.
comes into
Yeah.
play, like knowing how to like play with words. So that is what you do, and but also like if you have the opportunity within your network to ask people like, well, what do you think? Civil society, experts on carbon markets, whatever. Do not hesitate to ask them like, hey, what are your thoughts on grievance mechanism?
Yeah.
Or hey, Carbon Market Watch, have you done a study on grievance mechanism? You did. All right, can I see it?
Yeah.
You know, like stuff like that. And then you know, and people that are actually super influential, you in the carbon market scene, ask them, well, this makes sense. That doesn't make sense. Include that in a way. And then again, like it's not like you're vetoing everything. You throw it into the mix and see what sticks. And then you're like, and that's all part of these readings actually, so that at the end, when you send it, that you're like, all right, it's not perfect, but we did our best to send something.
But how does the caucus generally react to the work that you do? Because you give them the draft and say we would like to have a feedback, and sometimes it's a silent. Sometimes you get some comments, and if you do have a silence, why do you think that is?
Right.
And if you do have comments, you know, is a general engagement with your work, right? Because you're doing the work for the caucus, and you're doing work. The final position is going to represent the view of the caucus. So when you don't get any comments on the things that you're drafting, what does that mean to you?
What that does to me is, well, again, trust comes into play.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's what you know as simple as silent procedure. You know, like if there are no major objections, you assume that everyone is fine with it. And you assume, like, you give people sufficient time. Like I said, you try to do it as good as possible. There's no perfect process. So you do as much as possible to provide ample time for people to consider things. So 9 out of the 10 times you get a text back like, "Well, good job." Like